All right. Welcome back to Smart Franchising with Fransmart. And today we have Leslie Kuban. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, but including resales. When Leslie and I last spoke, we touched on resales. And I think it's so important because franchisees should buy franchises that they want to grow into companies that they want to sell before they get tired of it. And franchisors should want franchisees to sell when they get tired instead of letting it fall down the tubes. And there are tons and tons of franchisees that actually want to buy resale. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. But before we get into this, Leslie, you're also a successful franchisee. I think a family franchise business. So how about your story?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Dan. I'm happy to be here.
Our pleasure.
Franchising's been in my bloods since I was 8 years old. My dad, like many of my clients now, he was a sales leader in a big corporation, 3M company, and corporate mergers affected his career path and had him say, "This is for the birds. I want to do my own thing." And his research led him to franchising. That's the path my family went down when I was very small. And we were involved in a variety of ways in a variety of brands. So I grew up in that family business, family franchise environment for sure. And I
Well,
have him to thank for it. And I'm very grateful.
okay, that's nice. What was the franchise?
So he started with a VR business brokers franchise. It's really an interesting story and a lesson in timing. He was a business broker, a franchisee of VR, and this is in the late 80s and helping people largely buy and sell independent small businesses, kind of what you resales, like we've
Mhm.
already started to reference. And after a few years of that, he just saw how difficult that was for both sides of that transaction, the sellers and the buyers. Along the In that same timeline, franchising, having recently been more regulated, started really picking up steam as a platform for companies to grow. So he was a franchisee of VR. He was very successful financially and how you would consider success, but he wasn't happy with what he was doing. He wasn't happy with his product.
Mm.
Well, he just saw a better way with people like himself coming out of the corporate world, having never owned a business before. That franchising overall is the better path for the majority of people who are first-time business owners. And at that time, brands like Sylvan Learning Centers, Photo, mailboxes, et cetera, were really starting to put pins in the map. And he kind of became the guy in the Southeast for these emerging brands. And then my first venture into all of this, having grown up around that, was with mailboxes, et cetera. This was all prior to the UPS buyout 20 plus years ago. And I took over an existing store. So my entry into franchise ownership myself was through a resale.
Wow. Okay, got it. Got it. And then how'd you get involved?
I just grew up around it. I worked in these businesses. I had a temperament and a flavor for what a small business entails. We were also involved in a sign production business and I did sales for that business. So I did bookkeeping. So I didn't know it and probably didn't appreciate it at the time, but I was learning these small business skills and truthfully, I was a little directionless after I graduated college, and particularly looking at my friends who were, a class or two ahead of me. They all went to work for Anderson Consulting. I remember Anderson Consulting would come onto our college campus with an army of recruiters and just plucked grads, and they were miserable. They hated what they were doing. And my dad, I mean, he was kind of talking in my ear as well about, chart your own course, do your own thing. I'll help you do it. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was floating around for a year or so after college graduation. But then when I was ready to grow up a little bit and get serious, his involvement in mailboxes, et cetera, is what presented the opportunity of a struggling location. The owner was ill, elderly, didn't have anybody else to do anything with it. It was not far from where we lived. And so it wasn't super intentional, Dan. It was something that was an opportunity. It was there. I needed something to do, and it just happened to really work out well.
Yeah. And then you've been at it and you stayed with it. How long you been in franchising?
So that's coming up on 30 years.
And then how did you wind up getting into Fran?
So again, I would say some luck and good timing. When my dad was at VR, one of the women who worked for him in his role. He became president of VR franchising. So
Okay.
they tried to have a whole franchising effort. And one of the women that worked for him in that department of VR went on to become one of the pioneers, one of the first owner, I should say, office owners of FranNet out in California. And so when FranNet, and this is in 1999, they had a number of broker offices and were interested in having a greater presence in the Southeast. And she thought of my dad and called him up, and he turned to me. He's like, well, what do you think about this? And so I thought it was really interesting when I learned about what a good franchise broker really does and taking people through a process of self-evaluation, really thinking through all the elements that would make something a fit. I was like, I didn't do that. And that's okay. It ended up, the mailboxes thing worked out well for me. But I was like, that is really interesting. Like, I wonder if I would have chosen to do this if someone had taken me through a process like this. So,
Yeah.
just having been on the other side of getting into a franchise decision and not having gone through getting some help like that, I immediately thought it was interesting and intriguing. And
Yeah.
here I am 26 years later.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, FranNet is a brokerage. I think it's more of a consultancy, but I think the pigeonhole that we put it in is brokerage. Tell people about FranNet and also how it's different than some of the other brokerages out there.
So, I mean, first of all, FranNet is one of the pioneers in this business. It's, I think, 35 plus years in business now. And we've evolved over time. For many, many years in our history, we're organized hyper locally. So I was the expert in Atlanta, and then my colleagues are the experts in Charlotte or in Raleigh or in Denver or wherever.
Mhm.
And that served us well for a long time. But with the advent of just things being more borderless, being online, we have evolved our model over time. But if you look at how the state of FranNet now, we are still largely embedded in our local communities. We all have clients everywhere through relocations and referrals, but largely we are still the local expert in our respective marketplaces. And we have some very reputable competitors as well, some not so much, in my humble opinion, for what's that worth. And I'll put any of our people up against anybody when it comes to how to operate and work with people integrity, both franchisors and franchisees. More recently, there's a variety of potential regulations on the franchise broker and FSO industry. I think some of that stuff's kind of backed off a bit, at least for the time being, but we've been all for it because we see it as a way of potentially weeding out people who probably shouldn't be in our business. So
Yeah, I'm for it too. I mean, it's sort of I mean, I've been lucky. We've been part of some big brands and had some exits. And it's like, I don't need to sell a franchise. Like, I don't need a franchise fee. I don't need to sell a bad deal, right? Like, there's nothing about selling a bad deal that is good for me. And so I'm with you. I look at the regulations as a way to weed people out, really, really enhance the transparency and clarity of how things work. And in the long run, I mean, really, no matter how you look at it, it's better for the franchisees. And the only reason that we're here is for successful franchisees. If they're not successful, this whole thing withers away. So, but how do you help people? And I was surprised, like before we got on our podcast, I was messing around on your FranNet website. Like, you guys offer all kinds of free tools people can use. Like, I'm looking at your roadmap for success. That's one of a lot of things that's on the website where people can learn a lot about process and how to do it right. Fact is, you guys, if there's some franchisee somewhere and he's thinking about getting into franchising, his list of things he's thinking about is probably 10 or 12. Yours is 1,000, right? So, but tell me how you work with franchisees and why it's a good idea that they work with someone like you.
yeah. So I feel, and the way I operate, and I believe the way my colleagues operate in FranNet, is we take the approach of our first responsibility is to help that person, that family who is interested in having their own business. Most people coming to us have never owned their own business before, and they're interested in it for just having more ownership of their time, creating a family legacy, building family wealth. all the reasons why people are interested in owning a business. Typically, more creative, great creativity, but they have no idea. They're clueless as to what is really involved and how to get started and the different things you have to think about. So, and the reality is most people when they call us are really not ready. They don't have the time, they don't have the capital, they don't have the support at home. And really, Dan, I would say it's mostly the time. When I look at people who are really not ready, it's rarely the money or the talent. It's usually their time availability or their expectations just around how long this takes to really get it humming along. And
And
so,
where those guys get duped is from all the brokers who are talking about how passive franchising is and how
oh,
it's
yeah.
an ATM machine. Just buy it and it runs itself. And the truth is it's a lie. I mean, it's unfair to dupe people like that.
Yes, and there are some franchisors, too many of them that tout that message that really has very little to back it up either.
Yeah.
So, but your question was how we work with people, and the first order of business is to help people determine, are they really ready to go down this path of exploration? Are they poised in the next 6 months to really be able to find something and get into it in the right way and for the right reasons? So and most people aren't. And then when they are, a year, 2, 3, 10 years later, they come back to us. So I feel very good about part of our service to the public is helping people not go into business at this point in time if they're really not ready.
Yeah.
But then there are definitely those people who are, and we help those people through an assessment of their talents, through what they're looking to achieve, what's important to them, what else is going on in their life, the other people, the other responsibilities that we have to consider, and what model is going to best accommodate all of that. And I think largely helping people to have realistic expectations
Well, and
about.
it's a lot of integrity on your part because there's some brokers who will sell anything to anybody. And you just talked about your first order of business is weeding people out that aren't ready for franchising.
And helping them understand why and what they need to be doing or thinking about to prepare for greater readiness at some point in the future.
Who do you think makes a good franchisee? And who do you think shouldn't never buy a franchise, even if they were ready for it?
Yes, yes. Well, so first of all, you immediately have other stakeholders. You have the franchisor, you have other franchisees. Unless you are an area developer or master developer who owns the whole market, you're probably going to have other franchisees in your market area. And so you got to be someone who likes to collaborate and sees that as a positive. You got to play nice with people in the sandbox versus being the lone wolf. And there are people who are the lone wolf, and that's fine. They should be a startup entrepreneur, not a franchisee entrepreneur. I think you need to have some grit, even with a strong franchise system. I think this is one of the misperceptions I see from franchise owners and prospective franchise owners is that a well-tooled franchise system doesn't run the business for you, and they cannot deal with every challenge, every problem, every unexpected thing curveball that is going to come up. So I think even people who are going down the road with a seasoned, well-established brand that has been time tested maybe over a couple of decades, they still have to have some grit and resilience to run their own business and deal with challenges and headaches that are going to come up and not expect that it's going to be easy street.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that you're being honest. The truth is no business is easy. Even I launched Five Guys, but and when I launched it, they had no systems. They didn't even have a POS system. Now with almost 2,000, it's easier, but doesn't run itself. So you still are buying a business that runs itself, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that can go wrong. You're like, wait a minute, I bought a franchise. It's not supposed to be like this. No, you still gotta execute. So it's nice at least that you're telling people the truth of what they're getting themselves into. I think a lot of that is you were a franchisee too, right? So not to pit you against anyone else, but there's a difference. There's a few, and you mentioned that there's some broker groups that are better than others. I would even say that there's some people in those broker groups that are better than others, right? Each of these groups that I work with, we've done plenty of deals with brokers. Some of them are super ethical, super successful. The common denominator is they're all franchisees too. Like they all have the background like you, where 90% of their peers do not. They're just out there trying to get deals done and earn a commission. And it's like, gosh, that's terrible. How do you, I mean, you make really good content also. It's another thing. Like that's how I originally found you and followed you and learned about you is I follow your content, but you make really good content that kind of helps educate people. And it also gets them to learn about you before you've even met them.
Yes. And I enjoy that. I'm good at it. It's one of my strengths. And maybe that separates me a little bit from some others is I like it. I enjoy putting the time and the effort. For me, that's a creative outlet, but not everybody has that skill or that interest.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm patting myself on the back a little bit, but it is something I really enjoy and
Well,
you feel I'm good at.
I patted you on the back too. I watch your content. How else do you find clients? How else do you go about, like, if I wanted to be a broker, well, actually, I want to ask you that. Who should be a broker? What are the attributes of people that you admire as brokers, consultants?
I mean, I really think you should have owned your own business before, should have, what it's like to be responsible for other people's payroll. You know what it's like to juggle all the different balls in the air that any business owner has, including all franchise owners out there. I think having that, does it have to be a franchise? I don't know. I think that's the cherry on top. But I think, at a minimum, having run your own business in some form or fashion is an important qualifier to advise people on what it's like to have your own business and the things you have to think about. Dan, having just said that, though, there are plenty of people that have not owned their own business before that have come into our line of consulting and done very well and helped people in a great way. So I know I'm talking on both sides of my mouth a little bit there, but I'll tell you, my startup 26 years ago, this month, actually, February of 1999 was when I got started in franchise consulting and brokerage. It is a completely different world than someone getting started today. When you look at the people in franchise brokering who are getting started today, they usually come from franchising. They have a network, they have contacts, they know people. I think this is part of the reason why the franchise broker world is such a revolving door, because it's not inexpensive. It is not an overnight success. It takes a lot of work to develop a clientele, especially in a highly, highly competitive business like franchise brokering is. Most people in franchise brokering are part-timers, and I think they're sold that they can do it part-time and, make a little bit of extra money here or there. It just doesn't work like that. To do a good job for the clients, you spend an enormous amount of time, I'll call it product education, or with the franchisors. You have to learn all the different franchisors that you're working with, what the particulars are of them, the nuances of them, skills someone needs to have, what time availability they need to have, what kind of money do they really need to have. And that takes a lot of time and effort. I don't see how anybody could try to do what we do part-time. They may be able to do it, but I don't think they're going to do it well.
Yeah. I like broker companies. I mean, I guess in a way we're brokers, but we use broker companies. And the way I look at it is I'm getting a lead I don't already have of a candidate that's already scrubbed, right? So like compared to, me running an ad, me going to a franchise show and getting a booth and all this stuff, you have no control over who walks by or who's interested. You can't tell if they have two nickels to rub together, if they got the ability to do this. Where when we get a lead from a broker, first of all, because our rule is, hey, if I'm already working this guy, I'm not going to pay you. But if you bring me a lead that I'm not already working, then then we'll protect you. And so it's always a lead I don't already have, revenue I don't already have. And when that lead comes to me, it's already on second base. So like I don't know why everyone doesn't use brokers. There may be like I can't give away the franchise fee or I can't share the franchise fee. There's no money in the franchise fee, right? All the money is in, you think about $1 million franchise, the guy pays 40 grand in franchise fee or whatever. You get 20 of that to the broker, but that same franchisee is going to pay you 60 grand a year in royalties for the next 10 years is 600 grand. It's like, you're going to trade 600 grand for 20 grand, you idiot. So I like working with brokers. So like, how do you find people? Like, other than content, like if I were a broker, how do you find people? And then how do you get them to stay with you? Because that's the sort of weird thing, is like, a guy might be working with you, but then working with another broker or reaching out to brands on his own or whatever. Like, how do you kind of deal with that?
So my answer on how my clients find me is it's attached to the fact that I've been in business for 20, it's referrals. I mean, I'm not buying leads. I'm not out there hoofing it in a lot of networking, which I did do that stuff in the early years, but now I've helped a lot of people over a quarter of a century. And so I am, again, through content marketing, you're seeing this stuff on LinkedIn and
Mhm.
online. I also put a lot of effort into really intentional, high quality content and email marketing to a database that I have of clients and potential clients who like my stuff. I'm providing education. So staying in front of people that I've met along the way. I also have I speak. I've developed relationships through my clients, mostly with a handful of entrepreneurship professors and business schools, and they regularly invite me in to talk to their executive MBA and MBA classes to do a module on the franchising business model. And a lot of those students in those programs, a year, 2 years later, when they're finished with their very busy schooling situation, if they may have an interest in pursuing something in franchising for themselves, and then I help them at that time. So
Nice.
it's some very it's a handful of really good speaking opportunities that I enjoy, that I give value to, the content marketing and just staying out there. And most of my clients, again, come from those efforts.
Yeah. And then, of the franchisors that, when you finally do refer a candidate, you've done the profile, you've sorted out what they might be a good fit for, you make an introduction to the franchisor. Like, how can franchisors work better with brokers or with consultants?
Gosh, some do it really well. I'd say that it's the 80/20 rule. I'd say, I mean, communication is really important, responsiveness. There are franchisors that I am reaching out to them and I'm asking, I'm doing a territory check and I might not hear back from them for 3 days. I'm not going to do a you might see, maybe that's a singular instance, but if that's a pattern, that's how I know that they're going to treat the prospect, if that's how they're treating me. And that's not okay. So I think responsiveness, and I think having people on your FranDev team who understand the broker process is really helpful. So, because working with us and how to treat the client and how to handle what is appropriate or inappropriate ongoing communication is a knowledge set, it's a skill set. And brands who maybe they've been around for a long time, who haven't worked with consultants before, and now they're working with us, we tend to be treated like second class citizens
How so?
in responsiveness and just communication and updates about any issues with the client. There are things that we can be helpful about. We all have the same goal, which is to, help someone find the right business and for the franchisor to bring a valued new franchisee into their system who's poised for success. And that doesn't happen if there isn't an appropriate level of communication and responsiveness. Also, this is where I kind of have some trouble giving franchisors advice. They ask, how can we better communicate with you? How can we provide you with the information that you need so that we stay on top of your radar screen, but also are giving you what you need to identify the right candidates for us? And Dan, I probably get, I don't know, 100 plus emails every single day from franchisors on various marketing things. And I want to see information about your franchisees. I want to see testimonial videos.
Mhm.
I want stories. Like, stories stick, stories are memorable. Like, that is a great way for me to keep the brand top of mind. It's a great way for me to recognize this client that I'm working with now reminds me of the client, your franchisee, who talked about their business and how owning the franchise has made their life better. Like, those things help me filter through all the stuff I'm getting from
Yeah.
all these franchisors. What I don't need to know is the size of your industry.
That's funny. That's funny you say that, but that's really the secret of our success is like we don't really do first time franchisees. We tend to sell multi-unit deals to existing franchisees of other brands. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but those people already decided to be self-employed following, which is weird, right? Being self-employed is weird. Being self-employed following someone else's playbook is even weirder. And then after you open one and realize it's not an ATM machine, you open another one, you actually build a company, right? That's our target. Those are the people that we go after. And so, but it's funny, our secret of success to get those franchisees, we market those franchisees, right? So like our secret of success is not telling you how big the industry is or whatever. It's just making content around happy, referenceable franchisees. And so you just sort of said like that kind of stuff, and it proves our points. Like that's what we market. We market happy, successful franchisees telling you why this is such a good franchise, not the sales guy, not the marketing guy. And then it's ironic. I feel bad when you say you feel like second-class citizens. I know what that means. Our first year working with brokers, we misfired. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And we basically paid the money to join a system or two and just expected the money to come rolling in. And you realize these groups have hundreds of other brands, right? And they might have heard about you when you first signed up. They send out something about your brand, but then life happens so quickly. Like think about how many things you saw a week ago that you don't remember, like today, like you don't even know. So you got to constantly stay top of mind. But the irony that you said that you feel second-class citizen, why would you make a broker feel second-class citizen who can bring you leads you don't already have and will help you actually get the deal done? I don't understand that.
I think, well, I'm guessing here, Dan, but it's probably a pretty educated guess. I think part of it is, it's sharing a commission. Like FranDev people probably make more on organics or others versus when it's a consultant lead that's coming in. Some of us are pretty high maintenance and have requirements of communication that they don't especially want to have to adhere to. What else? It may just be disruptive of their process that they were accustomed to.
Yeah. But I go back to the whole commission split thing. The franchise, maybe that's the FranDev person, but the franchisor should hear this loud and clear. There's no money in franchise fees. That money in franchise fees just basically gets people in your system. All the money is in royalties, is in when someday someone pays you a life-changing amount of money to buy your company. Like you will not remember who made what off the franchise fee. There's no money there. And thankfully, a lot of people still worry about the franchise fee split because we give it all away. Like I don't need any of the franchise fee. So, but yeah, it's just weird. Like you make so much more money on the royalties. And then think about this, like we even go further. Like we not only make money on the royalties, imagine when that franchisee opens number 2, number 5, number 10. You're making 10 times that royalty on zero more effort, right? Very little more effort. You're getting 10 times the fee from that same group. All right, cool. Let's, I want to try you guys. I actually have not used you guys. So I want to try you guys on a project. Any particular kinds of concepts that work well with your organization?
Yes, we are definitely specialists in 3 categories in the service industries. So home services, for decades, we've worked very well with a variety of home services brands. Business services is also very much in our realm of expertise. And then I would say consumer or family services, which could be pet care, education, fitness, beauty, senior care, stuff like this. But we're not experts in food or retail or lodging.
Yeah. So I have a brand I'm going to try you on. So we'll see how it goes. But all these groups, franchisors they're all pay to play. You have to sort of pay to become part of the group. And then you have to give commission splits. And then I would even say that now you also have to pay by dedicating a portion of your internal resources to keeping these people up to speed with information about your brand because everyone else is. Like you just said, you get 100 emails a day. Imagine if I'm not even in one of the 100, I'm not even in that drown out conversation. So it's a whole thing working with broker groups successfully. But from my point of view, these are leads that you don't already have. They're leads you're not going to have. These are leads that are going to go to your competitors. We worked with another broker group, somebody that brought us a franchisee from, I think he had like Crumble Cookies and two or three other brands. 5-unit deal, 200 grand. We had to give them $100,000. It's like, okay, whatever. Then 6 months, that same franchisee came back and bought 3 more states. It was like, it turned it into a 7-figure deal all of a sudden. It's like that $500,000 we gave the broker. And think about, we don't have to do any more work. I didn't have to go out for another discovery day. The franchisor already was going to do 5 grand openings. I mean, the guy's not going to need hardly any help on his 6th opening or his 10th opening or whatever. So it's so silly. And then here, I mean, we gave the guy $500,000 commission. It was probably the happiest check I ever wrote. So
Good.
all right, cool.
That's a win. I agree.
Yeah. So no, I mean, we have franchisors listening to this. It's like, that's my advice. I spoke at Titus's thing a week or two ago in Florida. And it's like, you hear people, when I first told them the commission we were splitting, them shaking their heads like, I'd never pay that. Till I told them, then it became $1 million deal. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, maybe I should. So it's kind of goofy. But hey, so the main thing I wanted to talk to you about is resales. No, I forwarded you an email earlier today from someone else. You and that email are the only time I've heard anyone in our space talking about resales. But what are resales and why is it something franchisors should be very, very focused on?
Well, because number one, it's going to happen. I mean, it is going to be a part of your journey as a franchisor. You are going to have people who are not a fit for the system, who have some life circumstance that is going to prohibit them from being able to continue successfully, or on a very positive side, someone is ready to cash out on and have an equity event on the business that they've built. And there are people out there hungry to buy good existing businesses. There are also people interested in buying struggling businesses that they can turn around quickly, make an investment in, and then make a winning business. So it's number one, it's going to happen. And if you want to attract higher caliber, that's a nasty thing to say. I don't mean higher caliber. I mean, just maybe a more sophisticated business-minded franchisee that they are thinking about this. They are thinking about the exit strategy. And if you have no process for that, no knowledge of that, haven't even given it a thought, it's probably going to be a turnoff to that really business-minded candidate who could be a great driver of royalty revenue, someone who expands the business, a great validator, a great example of success, who's bringing time, talent, and capital to the table. I see having at least a semblance of a resale process, and it is very different. Dealing with a candidate through looking at a resale, it is very different than the process of new license sales. It's a different conversation. There's different variables involved. I would even call it a much more emotional track because you've got the emotions of the seller. Resales can get heated. They can get sticky. They can get ugly. So they can be great. It's just a deeper level of expertise. So I think particularly younger brands, their stance is, I'll deal with that when I have one. And then they're like, oh boy, I have one. What do I do now?
Well, they're for sure more complicated because when you and I are doing a brand new franchise sales, it's really, do they like the concept? Are they approved? And is the territory available? That's about it, right? When you're dealing with someone that already has 3 somethings in a market, now all of a sudden it's, let me see your financials. Let me talk, if it's something that has a lease, let me talk to the landlord about, let me talk to your vendors to make sure that you're current with payments and that I could take over those relationships. You go from having just a couple things. That's one of the reasons that we haven't focused more on it, is like doing brand new franchise sales is just easier and cleaner. But you are absolutely right. Franchisors should proactively be thinking about resales. So I think it's like, when a franchisee signs up, you're kind of the shiny toy in their toy box of life. Like you're the thing that they're thinking about. Your job is to prolong that as long as you can, keep them wanting to reinvest more stores and more stores. We actually give we give every franchisee who signs up, once they're signed up and in the system, we give them a model that's basically the financial business model that they follow to sell their company, all the way down to what's the CapEx, what's the P&L, what's my ROI, fold that into my second store, less money out of my pocket for my second, less money out of my pocket for my third. At some point, those things will self-fund and grow. We do that because it keeps the retention longer. But the very bottom right corner is, what's this company worth at this multiple? And we get a different outcome with our franchisees. Every check that you ask them to write is now an investment. It's not a cost. But once all of a sudden, it could happen if they're struggling. It could happen if they get divorced. It could happen if they just find something that they want to do more. All of a sudden, you won't even know it immediately. It just starts to atrophy. Like they're good people leave, they replace them with less good people. And so that's sort of a downward spiral. So you should be really in tune with your franchises to have a steady strategy to sell those at the peak to someone who then can have another honeymoon. But is that how you think about it?
I mean, I think about it as I see it on both sides of the coin. It's an opportunity and it's just something you have to deal with if you're going to choose to be a franchisor. So I think a franchisor has a responsibility to their franchisees to get some education and have some processes around resales. I think it's, we talk the key term these days is responsible franchising. And I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I wanted to talk to you on the subject. I bought businesses, sold businesses. Whenever I'm buying a business, I always want seller financing for the leverage. Whenever I'm selling a company, I want no seller financing for the liquidity. We actually, all of our franchisees, we keep them in front of lenders so that when they're and we have them keep sharing the numbers with these lenders. And then eventually people like, I don't know if you know Patrick Gallagher at Boxwood, or people who could actually sell your company someday. You really want to be packaged when it's time to go as fast as you can. Like you should be growing your company to be sold, which includes having a banker, like a sell side guy in the ready, including having your access to capital so that you get the most money for your business and no seller financing.
Yes, our late friend, Stephen Covey, we can always turn to his wise words of begin with the end in mind.
Begin with the end in mind. That's good. I didn't know it was his. I say that a lot. I didn't know that was his. I like Covey. But cool. What else? Do you have to be a licensed broker to sell existing business, or can anyone sell an existing business?
No, and it depends on the state. So, and actually this is an important distinction to make with regards to someone in my structure of a business versus a business broker. What a franchise consultant, franchise broker does is very different than what you would think of as a business broker. A business broker is specifically soliciting listings from business owners, whether they're franchisees or independent business owners, taking the listing, doing a deep analysis, packaging the resale. And in some states, yes, you need to have a real estate license or another kind of license to be able to do that. And sometimes franchise brokers, like in FranNet, we have several of our offices who are both, that they're a Sunbelt broker or, one of the other Transworld Advisors business broker, and they are a FranNet franchisee with a FranNet office. So, but most of us, and I include myself in this, we are not taking listings from sellers. So when resales are a very small part of my business, I'd like it to be more. It's just that good ones and franchisors that have a process for it there's not as many as I would like. But the way I know about a franchise resale is one of the brands in our inventory will let me know they have a franchisee exiting. I get very little information about it. I may get some bullet points or some nuggets about it, but not anywhere close to what a deep dive that a business broker is going to do with their listing. I have zero communication with the seller of that franchise. That is a conflict of interest. So, and then I may present the resale to my clients in the mix of the various opportunities I'm going to share with them. If it makes sense, it's got to, make sense for them. But I have to tell them, listen, I know very little about this. Like I have done no vetting. I have not been given the information. You are going to really have to do your own vetting. I may refer them to attorney, accountants, M&As, advisors to help. I mean, not very often, because most of these are small resales. They're not really larger enterprises. But it is really, I am encouraging my client, the prospective franchisee, that they really have to roll up their sleeves and do some of their own due diligence. And they can't rely on me for that because I haven't been given the information given my role and the particulars of that in this whole equation. So the transparency around that is very important.
Yeah. So to that end, what do you think are some things that a franchisor should do with the franchisor thinking about the end in mind. Like, what should franchisors do to be thinking about a better resale strategy in their system?
Okay, so, and there's some brands that do this really, really well. They have and they tend to be larger, more seasoned brands where they have a whole resale track that if the candidate is looking at one of their franchises for sale, they go to this person versus this person over here for new licenses. I mean, that's only going to make sense once a brand reaches a certain number of units open.
Hey, real quick before you go, describe. You said a resale track. So for those of us that don't know what that means, what does that mean?
That means a brand dev person dedicated to resales. So Fast Signs does that. Express Pros does that. I think CertaPro Painters did, and if you think about them, these are larger organizations. Neighborly, I believe, does that.
Okay.
And I apologize if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right on
Yeah.
these. If I am made aware of a resale and then I'm referring a candidate for that resale, it's going to go to this person and they have a different conversation track than if they're looking at new sales.
Yeah.
And that conversation track may include, I really like it when brands require the selling franchisee to complete a package. They're putting together there's specific financial information that they have to put together. Like there's a checklist of before we will discuss your business with any franchise candidate, you have to demonstrate that you're serious about selling your business and you've put the basic building blocks of information that any buyer is going to ask for together. It doesn't have to be super sophisticated, but a lot of people who want to sell their business or they say that they're just testing the waters.
Mm.
And it's like, well, maybe I'll sell my business if the right offer comes along. And they have no plan for what they're going to do after they sell their business. That's been one of my frustrations on the resale side of things is that someone they don't have the next plan. They don't know what they're going to do. And then at the 11th hour, when a lot of people have spent a lot of time, the candidate may have put money into attorney's fees, accountant's fees, and then the seller just changes their mind that they don't want to sell their business at the 11th hour. So the franchisor making the selling franchisee put together information, maybe jump through a few hoops, will demonstrate a level of seriousness there. I like them to have reviewed the financial statements of the selling franchisee and given the franchisee some coaching to have realistic expectations of based on comparables within the franchise or what else you go out and look at them biz by sell. What is your competition for businesses for sale in your area or in your industry and give some coaching to the franchisee so that they are not, having absolutely unrealistic expectations about what their business is worth.
Yeah.
The franchisor can't tell the seller what they can or can't sell their business for, but they can, and in my opinion, should be giving some guidance around expectation setting.
If nothing else, then point them where they can find comps, right? Or point them to where they're going to find some logic. But I think a franchisor, the truth is when I think across all of the brands that I've ever worked with, it's just not part of any of the narratives, not part of orientation. It's not part of training. It only really comes off on a one-off when franchisees start either getting in trouble or you'll get a franchisee who gets big enough and then all of a sudden you get an email in the mail. That process has already started. So it's always reactionary to the franchisor. And I think franchisors should be proactive. They should say, we want you to build a company. We want you to stay super engaged, keep growing, keep reinvesting, keep building, and then sell at whatever your peak is, sell. And tell us so we can help you. Like tell us so we can be ready because I've seen deals die. I actually had to help a friend of mine with a sandwich chain. He represents a seller was trying to sell, and the franchisor was just not being responsive, right, to the diligence or their approval process. And that deal was going to die. Like those deals are going to die. So the franchisor has to not only be out in front, they got to be ready because that franchisee already decided to go. He's already starting to cut corners and to trim costs. He's not going to reinvest the CapEx. He's out. And now the new franchisee should get in there as fast as he can so that honeymoon period continues to lift the business. But I don't know, like that's
right. It only makes sense. It's like if you've got someone who is ready to go or needs to go, you want someone who's motivated and excited to come in and continue to further your royalty stream.
Yeah.
Rather than letting it die on the vine.
Yeah. No,
and then
that's the whole
damaging
point
and
right
then
there.
potentially damaging validation in that area with a closure.
Yeah. And then think about that franchisee knows other franchisees. And if he's like, the franchisors are super unresponsive when you go to sell, or they're not helping me sell it. I mean, they're going to commiserate, right? They're going to, just like they say good things, they more often say that they share the bad things. And so I think that I want to spend more time figuring out we can get better at that with our brand. But yeah, that was one of the main things I want to talk to you about. I know that you're big on the idea of resales, and I think it's just such a smart strategic thing to be talking about and focusing on, making sure when a franchisee is ready to go, it should be easy to get that guy out and someone new in.
Part of the roadblock is this is a put yourself in the role of FranDev, that they typically get paid a whole lot less on resales than they do for new licenses. And I don't know what the right answer is. There's the transfer fee, it's less than the franchise fee, but I think that is a big missing link. And I don't know what the answer is that if you, in the end, the better benefit for your royalty stream and your enterprise value is to fairly and adequately compensate your FranDev people on resales.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably it. It's probably the right answer at some point is going to be a digital system, digital marketplace to work on the resales, but then you still are going to need internal people at your company, getting those people through the process, getting them on board and making them feel supported. And so, yeah, you're right. Like that's a case where, like we pay all of our reps a healthy base commission, and you're right. Maybe they don't, because the transfer fees less, their commission is going to be lower, but we pay we pay a lot guaranteed. So to kind of avoid that, we do it too, because I don't want if you look at these organizations that are commission only, you're kind of rewarding people they eat what they kill, right? So like they're going to close whatever they can close and tell you whatever they need to tell you to get the deal closed. We don't. We pay people a 6-figure base because I don't want that. If there's someone that's not good for the system, don't bring them, and people can still cover their bills. But I don't have a better program for resale, so I'm going to take that from our conversation and figure out how I could come up with a comp plan for our franchisees on the resales. What segments are you really excited about right now? If somebody came to you and said, hey, I just want to be self-employed. I want to build something with my family, start small, parlay it into something that could be generational wealth. Where would you lead them and why?
I think I'm partial to non-bricks and mortar service businesses because you can get them going faster. You don't have a landlord and a lease to deal with, or at least not a traditional on the corner of First and Main kind of retail space to deal with. Just with the cost of capital, it's coming down, but it's still high. So I like a lot of the margins in the service businesses, business services, home services. I do plenty of business with the brick and mortar too, but it's just more expensive and it takes longer. That is usually more appropriate for the person who has the time to do this in tandem with whatever their other gig is, their other businesses, their job, whatnot. It does a bricks and mortar model with a general manager is better suited for that client. But I'm definitely seeing that we're in a white collar recession right now.
Yeah.
A year ago, all of my clients were employed. Now, many of them are not, or they see the writing on the wall. And so, they don't have a year to get a brick and mortar thing open.
You say home service. I was in food forever. I was only ever growing food concepts until COVID. And then all of a sudden my eyes were open to, I had a different prejudice about non-food franchising thing. And I just didn't understand the real value. But like home service, just like you're saying, I've looked at a couple of those and I talked to the franchisees and I'm surprised. It's like, what did it cost you to get going? How much do you make? Like that's better than most. There's a guy, I'm in Scottsdale. There's a guy that does barbecue. His whole business is he'll come to your house, get your barbecue, take it away for a couple of days, bring it back brand new or good as new. So he'll maybe replace some parts, clean it up, does whatever. I paid $1,200 guy to updo my barbecue. And when he came by to pick up my barbecue, there's 4 other barbecues. And I'm just doing the math, $4,000 in a truck. He didn't have an office. So I think you're right. I think people should open their eyes to the idea that there's some pretty inexpensive ways to get very wealthy in this business.
And the lower cost is not, it's not a correlate to what your potential is,
Which was
which I think people may think, well, it's lower cost, so it's lower opportunity. And that's just not true.
that's what I thought. Like that, honestly, when I was doing food, that's what I thought. I thought I just didn't know. Now I'm in non-food. You wonder why you ever want to do another food brand. But anyways, cool. So, hey, you've been great. I appreciate, you've been very generous with your time, and I appreciate you sharing.
Dan, it's my pleasure. I enjoyed our chat. Thank you for having me.
Where can people find out more about you?
So I'm on, the best place is LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. Leslie Kuban with a K. I think I'm the only one out there. I should be pretty easy to find.
Okay. And they can, yeah, we'll put your contact info on this podcast as well. But thank you,
Thank you.
audience. And you know the drill. If you like this, please like this and share this. And we will see you all soon. So thank you again, Leslie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.